It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, it's a home court podcast. Welcome in, guys. So, huge weekend for sports, NBA, playoff action happening, and then, of course, Lefty, the legend, with a major victory at the PGA Championship at Kiowa Island in South Carolina. And, yes, golf clap. Thank you.
Golf clap.
I need to open the podcast with just a quick recap and conversation about the greatest left-handed golfer of all time. I find myself in awe of him. I'm also a lefty, and golf needed that, don't you think, Sam?
Golf absolutely needed a hero, and it got everyone interested.
The gallery walking up 18, I'm fully goosebumped right now. Just even thinking about. We haven't seen a gallery like that in a year in golf, right? Because, COVID, every sport has been like that. But you could really see America healing almost in that moment where, dude, they broke through the barrier. They were way too close. They didn't even let Brooks and Ricky through. The gallery was like, no, you guys just stay back there. Like Brooks was mad in his interview after because someone hit his knee because they were so crowded. And, yeah, they Brooks and Ricky couldn't even get to the green. And it just reminds me of Tiger and the galleries that he's had over the years, whether it be Augusta or in the PGA Championship, all of his major wins. But we haven't seen a gallery like that get behind someone.
Or the Tour Championship. How about the Tour Championship with Tiger when it was his first one back? And following him down the fairway was just so awesome to watch. And so I agree. I think golf really needed this. Yeah.
And Phil is, he's been my hero. Sam knows him and Tiger are my absolute heroes, idols. And Phil even more so in a lot of ways, and Tiger in other ways. Kind of pick and choose from both. But he's been saying he's close for a long time, for like 3 years now. He's like, I'm close. And we're all like, you're absolutely insane, actually, if you think that. Like, he's hit a putter from 71 yards in the last major before Augusta, and we're like, no, you're not. But here he is, 366-yard drive on 13 in a major. He's 51 years old.
Wow.
And it was a cut too. It wasn't even a draw or a hook. It was a cut. And he was bombing them, and he's been all about hellacious seeds and bombs. And just to see him hold up the Wanamaker and the amount of ecstatic and elation that was going through him was amazing. So that's all I needed to say. I was so fired up. I had tears in my eyes yesterday. I was teaching and needed a moment. It was, and both my student too was like, this is like goosebump level. It was amazing.
And I thought he couldn't do it. Looking at the leaderboard a couple days in, I was like, oh, this is great. But Brooks Koepka's right behind him. Hideki Matsuyama has been playing great. Oosthuizen's there. It was stacked. Bryson DeChambeau was sneaking up a little bit. But this just proves how great Phil is, in that he was finally engaged. He knew he had a chance, and he exploited it, and he won because he's, a top 5 talent in the history of the game. There's no lefty that comes near to him, right? I don't remember. Yeah, who is the second best lefty? Just real quick.
It's probably Weirzy, just because he has a Masters win. But that's it.
Bubba.
Mike Weir.
How about Bubba? Bubba, he's got 2
Bubba,
Masters.
Sure. But Bubba's more of a fan favorite. He hasn't won a lot of tournaments. He's won a couple majors, but as far as like
a couple Masters is cool.
Goes,
yeah. All right. Well, that does it. Phil Mickelson. So happy that happened. But let's get into some basketball.
I want to say this too, real quick. On 17 on Saturday, he hits it into the water and makes double. And 17 yesterday. So on the driving range, he broke his 1-iron. 15 minutes on Sunday before tee off. He broke his 1-iron. And I saw that news come across my ESPN, and I was like, oh, this is a sign. Like, he's in. Like, obviously, the golf gods did not want his 1-iron in play. And so he put a four wood in his bag. Like, who owns a 4 wood? Like, only Phil Mickelson owns a 4 wood. They don't even make 4 woods. And yeah, so he put one in his bag, and then on 17 he stood over his shot and was about ready to take his swing, and he stepped off, and I was like, oh no, this is the moment where he's like way too deep in his head. And he got back over top of it and hit a great shot. It was a little long, but the way he decided to play those last 5-6 holes was something that we haven't seen from Phil in years, and I'm very, very happy for him. But yeah, let's get into some NBA.
Let's get into the NBA because it's been busy in the NBA. A lot of fun games going on, a lot of storylines. But I want to start because we never got to talk about the play-in games and how they turned out. And the Warriors didn't make it into the playoffs. Surprising to say the least. Do you think this hurts Steph Curry's legacy at all? What do you think about that?
Great question. No, I don't think it does. I think Steph Curry's legacy isn't even necessarily close to the greats, the Kobe's and the Jordans and the Brons. Steph Curry's legacy to me is the greatest shooter of all time. There's no one that comes close, and so he put on, like you said, he put on a show, and it wasn't there when it really mattered, I guess. But yeah, his legacy to me is more about just being the absolute greatest shooter of all time and leading as a smaller guard, being effective as much as he had and leading teams to championships. But he's never really been the Kobe and LeBron and Jordan conversation kind of guy, and he never will be. So
yeah. And how about Memphis? I mean, we're happy to see him in.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and I think they have a real shot. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's out. They stole game 1. They got home court advantage now, and
so I think both of us picked Golden State, right?
Yes, we did.
And I said Golden State has a chance to beat Utah if they make it there, and you're right. I think Memphis does too, and it's not even as for a lack of talent from Memphis that we picked them, but we thought Golden State was better. But like I said, Donovan Mitchell has not been the same, and he was held out game 1, and it showed. And I think if Memphis is just a solid team defensively and offensively, so it should be interesting.
And Rudy Gobert fouled out, so when you don't have Rudy and you don't have Don in the game, I mean, Bogdanovich is going to have to do quite a lot, and he did. But Memphis is a solid team, and it seems like they're having a lot of fun. They're young, inexperienced, but they have an edge to them. They have some grit, and I feel like they could push this series pretty deep. And then on the other side, we had the Wizards and the Celtics, just like the seeds suggested, so nothing super... Wait, did we get the Wizards? Yeah, we got the Wizards. I always forget because I see Brooklyn as the 1 seed, so I'm always confused because it's Celtics-Brooklyn. I don't think Philadelphia is going to have too much problem with the Wizards, and, I mean, we all know Brooklyn isn't going to lose a game. They could rest. Yeah. I believe they could rest a few players in that series if they'd want. We're going to have to get into the Lakers at some point. But what series pops out to you after game 1, Connor? Do you have any series that are like, this is going to go to 7 and it's going to be a joy to watch?
2 series. One, the Lakers-Suns series is going to go to 7. And the second one is Portland-Denver. So Portland-Denver is going to be a great, great series. And Phoenix, go ahead.
They're a likable team. Phoenix is a likable team.
I love them. I
like them too. I personally think this is exactly what the Lakers did last year. They start the playoffs by losing game 1 to Portland and then winning 5. They go into the next series, lose game 1, win in 5. Next series, lose game 1, win in 5. It's just like, I mean, LeBron even says himself, I like to use game 1 as like a feel-out game, which is kind of like insane. Like, go out and win, LeBron. Yeah. But I think that mentality, coupled with the fact that he is nursing an injury, made him really just go out there. And he didn't show playoff intensity.
He played awful.
Yeah, you could argue he played awful, but the only thing that overshadowed it was Anthony Davis playing even worse. So... the Lakers as a whole, they didn't show up like it was a playoff game. Last year, I mean, they put forth a bunch of effort throughout the regular season. I even thought they put more effort than in that game yesterday. And it could be because the Suns are just a more legitimate team than we thought. But Chris Paul was a little bumped up, and the Lakers
very bumped up. That is a point.
The Lakers are a much better team, especially when Chris Paul is bumped up, but they just couldn't make a shot. Sometimes
Chris
the ball
Paul
has
has
to
a
go in the
curse.
hoop.
Chris Paul has a playoff curse, a legitimate playoff curse. I mean, he's always banged up, but as soon as it comes around, his shoulder is not looking healthy, and he played basically the whole second half with one shoulder, one arm.
Yeah.
So,
and he affects the game in so many ways. So
and
he
here's
doesn't
what I
have
said,
to shoot.
Yeah. Here's what I said about the Lakers going into the playoffs. Anthony Davis has to be 1A, and LeBron has to be 1B in the first series and maybe even the second. And if AD plays the way he did the rest of this series, it's game over. Goodbye. See ya. Sayonara. So long. Talking Stick Arena round 2. I just love Talking Stick Arena. It's a great name for an arena.
Talking Stick Casino and Resort.
Yeah, so if AD can step up and give us 25 and 10 and play the way he's supposed to, then we'll be fine, or you'll be fine. And LeBron will play better. I'm not concerned about LeBron. I'm concerned about AD.
Me too. But a lot of people have been talking about AD doesn't shy away from taking blame. And in the post game, he was like, yeah, I just couldn't get it going. That's on me. I think he thought it was a little clogged up for him. I think the AD Drummond starting lineup might not be super great for AD.
Drummond cannot be on the floor when Anthony Davis is on the floor.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
agree.
just how it has to go.
And I think Vogel will do that because a lot of people are talking the Lakers, they're such a great defensive team and they have so many defensive assets, but sometimes they forget that you also have to score the ball to win a game. They held Phoenix to 99, and the modern NBA, that's a good defensive game, and you should win.
Amazing, yeah.
But Anthony Davis looked a little passive, but I think, like we're saying, it's because the floor felt clogged. It seemed like there were no lanes for AD or LeBron all game. LeBron hit a couple threes, which when I saw that happen at the beginning, I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a sweep. But then they just slowed down, act like they didn't care the whole time. But with all this being said, I think the Lakers are still, they should still be heavy favorites, because if you shoot 28% from 3 and shoot 56% from from the line, I mean,
they are still favored in Vegas.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm with you,
and they should be. Yeah.
But like you said, Dennis Schroeder's job when he came to Los Angeles is to take the scoring load and make it manageable for Anthony Davis and LeBron. And Schroeder needs to do that, a better job of that, and he will and he can. But Drummond can't be there to clog up what Dennis Schroeder does best, which is get to the middle of the floor and either make a decision or score. And when Drummond is there in that spot, I mean, it's especially with Ayton and those big boys down there. I mean, Schroeder has to be able to get into the middle of the floor, and he did not do a good job of that. So
he ended up with 14 points, and they all came pretty early, it felt like. So he was pretty much absent for most of the game, but everyone was absent. Montrezl Harrell might have been the only Lakers player to have a decent game. And the funny thing is, Drummond started off the game really hot too, but he was taking away scoring from other players, and he was taking other people out of rhythm, even though he was working hard, getting offensive rebounds, getting some putbacks. It's just hard to imagine the Lakers succeeding with both him and AD in the lineup, especially against a team where you don't have to compete with size, really. I mean, AD is plenty big to guard Ayton, and honestly, Ayton probably doesn't have what it takes to guard AD, so put him in that situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a vintage AD performance in
How
Game
good
2.
is Book?
Book's great. We talked about this. Yeah, a lot of people thought, oh, he's a 3-point shooter. You know, that's his thing. But we talked about this a few months ago. He could score 28 a game not shooting a single 3. He's that kind of scorer. His footwork's great. He's not overly explosive, but he doesn't have to be, because he can get to his spot and he'll make a jumper. He's got one of the prettiest shots in the league, and he can score in in a variety of ways. His floater game is great. I think the Lakers would benefit from putting Alex Caruso on him for a longer part of the game just to pester him. I think Caruso didn't play enough minutes because he's a difference maker. Yeah. I think KCP didn't do a great job on D, but D-Book gets to a spot.
My ideal lineup for this series is Schroeder. It's tough because Schroeder, KCP, and Caruso on the floor with LeBron and AD is great, but I also like Trez in there to help with Ayton. So it's like those 6 guys need to really be they need to play almost all in. Caruso and KCP need to just take turns coming in and out of the game and just pestering Booker. And I don't necessarily think that Chris Paul is going to get his. He's going to find his guys. He's going to be where he needs to be, no matter who's guarding him. But someone needs to make Booker feel unbelievably uncomfortable for being in his first playoffs, and it needs to be KCP and it needs to be Caruso. They need to foul him. They need to make Yeah,
because I was fully expecting that. I was fully expecting the Lakers as the number 1 defensive team to just hound him, especially because you don't have to pay too much attention. Like, Ayton got his buckets from putbacks, and he was just hanging around the rim. So he's not that offensive threat that you need to be like. You need to box him out. But other than that, he doesn't do much. Mikal Bridges, close out on him, but he's not. He's just going to shoot threes. Mikal Bridges has become a really solid player.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like the Lakers could have put more resources on D-Book, and I don't even mean double team. I just mean hound him constantly, almost face guard him to the point where if he'll get around you, but then you got help too. You got AD. He's depoy if he is healthy. I just think we didn't designate enough resources to D-Book, especially being that Chris Paul was bumped up and his shot wasn't looking as pretty.
Should we move on to a different? Fix that. Yeah, let me ask you, who are the? Is there a series or two that you're excited for that you didn't necessarily see right away?
Well, I'm not super surprised that Portland-Denver is going to be a good long series. I think it's interesting because Denver doesn't have an answer for Dame, but Portland doesn't have an answer for Nikola at all. Yeah. So it's one of those series. It's like who's going to come out and have a better game, and that person could single-handedly, like Nikola. Obviously, for Denver to win a playoff series, Nikola has to be basically averaging a 30-point triple-double.
Yep.
He's that important to them.
And that's standard.
That is standard. Yeah, that is standard for him, and he can do it. And I still like the Nuggets in this series, even though we both actually picked Portland. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, last week we both picked Portland. So that's making us look smart, but I still think Denver's got a pretty good shot in this series just because of how good Nikola Jokic is. And then when it comes to another series that I'm really excited about, I mean, it's obviously Knicks Atlanta.
There's one I'm hoping. Okay.
Yeah, it's obviously Knicks Atlanta for me because, I mean, you could argue Milwaukee Miami's that great series, but
there's a lot of good series.
And the first game was tight. It went to OT. But I really like Milwaukee in that series, and I'd be shocked if it went to 6 or 7 games. I think Milwaukee will take care of business this year because of Drew Holiday. That addition's huge. But let's talk about Knicks Atlanta because I really think this is an exciting series. I want the Knicks to win it so bad. But were you able to catch that game?
Yeah, I caught a lot of it.
So apparently Burks has an unstoppable jumper, and we always knew he was a good scorer off the bench, but I like that. I like that for the Knicks. That's a good development, but they still couldn't get it done with him scoring 28 that game. Was it 28?
Yep.
I don't know, because Atlanta getting that 1-0 is so big for them because they're one of those teams that they're really hard to stop, and they score a lot of points. So you give them more confidence, and they're going to be running more in transition. They're going to be scoring a lot of points, and the Knicks, they can't score 115. The only way they win by locking you down, and then having Randall do some great shit in the clutch, or D Rose for that matter. I'm excited because I wasn't able to catch that game. So I'm really excited to catch game 2 and learn a little bit more about it because, I mean, it was a 2-point game. There was a lot of clutch shots made by both teams, but when it came down to it, Trae Young had the last laugh. But I'm excited to dig deeper into that series because I think we're going to see 7 games. And I want to know if you're going to go to one of those games. Because
I'm actually texting with my dad right now about possibly going. But here's what I'll have to say about that game is the Knicks need another. They're good. They're awesome. Julius Randle is a budding superstar. He's already established himself as a star, but he is well on his way to be becoming a superstar. But they need one more guard, I think. We wondered if it would be quickly. Burks looked good, but they need a guard that can go get buckets and can do damage and be just a dog and kind of fit into that mold of what this Knicks team and what Tibbs is building. It's just this dog mentality that Randall obviously has, and some of these guys have. And McMillan has done an absurdly good job with this Hawks team. They went from the worst defensive team in the league to a middling, I think they're like 11 or 12 on the defensive side, top 5 offense. Bogdanovich looks amazing. Trae is obviously doing what Trae does, and my heart is still with Atlanta, or I'm still with New York, but I won't be disappointed or surprised to see the Hawks win this series. And we said this last week. This is a dogfight of a series, and it's a good one.
Yeah, and who, in your opinion, has a better chance to take down Philadelphia?
Of these two?
Yeah.
Neither. The Knicks. And here's why, is because we've seen this kind of in the past in the NBA. The teams that play hard-nosed defense, that are just have that extra dog mentality that I'm speaking about, are the teams, the 03 Pistons, some of these Spurs teams, even that Celtics teams with KG and Paul Pierce. Although they had a big 3, they were also dogs. I mean, KG was a dog, and that mentality is so huge in the playoffs. And I don't see the Hawks with that same sort of mentality, and I also don't see Brooklyn right now with that same mentality. So we'll see. The Brooklyn series or game was interesting because they struggled with what we kind of expected. Who the heck is going to shoot? Who's scoring? Whose turn is it to go get a bucket? And they all can get buckets whenever. It doesn't matter. They're going 4-0. But if they get into a position where things get rough and rowdy and games are tight in the last few minutes, they need a little bit of that early almost. Like Tom Izzo's Spartans coach loves losing early in the year so they can figure out their problems. Brooklyn needs 1 or 2 games in this series or the next series against the Bucks for them to kind of get into that situation so they can figure it out. And that's what they need. And everything else is fine.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. They struggled, but they won. And it was a 9-point game, but nobody thought Boston was going to win that game. But yeah, I agree. New York has a better chance to take Philadelphia down, but you're right. Neither of them have a real world possibility because New York could get gritty. They could play great defense, but then you're talking about a Philly team who's got some brilliant defenders on them. So when you go like for like, you look at the matchup, Philly. I mean, I think that's a 5-game series at most if the Knicks move on to the next round.
Yep.
Tobias Harris had he scored 28 in the first half. So if Tobias Harris has that kind of playoffs, and I'm not even saying this series is one thing because they're playing against the Wizards who have their problems on defense. But if we see a Tobias Harris that's putting even just 25 a game during the playoffs, I really like Philadelphia. I really like Philadelphia to make it to the finals. Because of what you're saying. I just can't imagine Brooklyn is going to be this finely tuned machine with 3 guys who want a shot at the end of the game. Although I think Harden is fine giving up that shot at the end of the game. I think Kyrie and Kevin Durant could have a little some disagreements on who should have the ball. And for me, it's KD, but but Kyrie's, it's hard to argue against him because he's one of the most brilliant offensive players we've seen.
I think you're right, and I think it's KD 1, Kyrie 2, Harden 3.
Yeah, but that's only because Harden is being that kind of player this year. Because I think...
Well, Harden's capabilities are there.
Yeah.
But we've seen there's no history of Harden doing things. There's history of KD hitting a 3 over LeBron in the playoffs. There's history of Kyrie hitting 3s over Steph. Harden has...
Yeah.
Been bad. Been bad in the playoffs.
You're right. And
for the capabilities he has.
Yeah, so Brooklyn is probably lucky that he's being a little more passive, trying to be more of a facilitator. Because you're right, he hasn't hit those shots. He hasn't proven himself down the stretch in the playoffs. You want to touch on Milwaukee, Miami at all?
Yeah. Well, first of all, looking at the box scores, just they're at the top of the document that we have screen that I'm on, and it's like you look at the box scores in the regular season, it's like 122 to 117, 133 to 119, and we got 90 to 99, 107, 105, 112, 109. Like scores are down, and this game changes in the playoffs, and I love that. You wanted to touch on Miami, Milwaukee?
Yeah.
I think this series could go to 7, and Miami looks good. Milwaukee shot the 3 really bad. They shot like 20%, maybe even less from 3. Miami made a ton of 3s. They also Miami scored inside the paint very well. Milwaukee is leaning way too much on the 3, and this is what I've said kind of time and time again. When the paint collapses like it does in the playoffs and Giannis has to step up, there isn't room for him to do what he normally does. So Middleton has to kind of take over. And you said Middleton is one of the most underrated best players in the league. Yeah. And he showed last night that he could take that shot. But is he really the guy? Do they have a guy as Drew or Middleton, the guy that can go get them a 3 or off the dribble pull-up jump shot with a minute left in the game, time in and time out in these playoffs? Is he that guy?
Middleton, I think he is that guy. He has that pull-up jump shot skill set, and I think we've seen it a lot, and we'll see if he can make it down the stretch. But that's one of his shots. He can get his shot because what is he, 6'9"? I mean, he's a oversized shooter, kind of, He's not a 2, obviously. He's a 3. But he's still oversized, I'd say. He's got a lot of size. But I don't think Milwaukee's going to struggle too much through this series because they need to win it. It would be panic mode in Milwaukee if they lost it. And just because Miami looks good doesn't mean they're better than Milwaukee. And it's a shame that they couldn't get to a better seed down the stretch when they started to win some games, Miami, because they did have a chance to make some noise. But I don't think so against Milwaukee, even though Game 1 did go to overtime. I say this because I thought it beforehand, but I watched that game and it could have gone either way. It really could have. But yeah, I just personally, I don't see Milwaukee losing this series. So let's move on to another series in the West. And
well, I'm kind of disappointed that you're just dismissing this series so quickly. Like,
there's something about it. It like I said, it's because I thought beforehand that Milwaukee wasn't gonna have a problem. So then when they get the Game 1, no matter how it goes, it makes me feel a lot more confident in my prior decision that Milwaukee was a better team and they were going to get it done. Milwaukee blows up if they lose, so they can't lose. And sometimes the narrative guides my decisions.
What about Dallas Clippers?
Oh, yeah. How have we not started talking about that? Probably the series most likely to go to 7 games, especially after Dallas steals home court. I think the Clippers, they deserve this because they tried to avoid the Lakers. Luka's like, "Are you sure you wanted to play us? You didn't want to play the Lakers, but I'm LeBron. I'm Euro LeBron. I mean, I'm going to take you out." I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks got this series done. What did Luka have? 30, 10, and 10?
Yep.
And that's not like, wow, Luka at 30, 10, and 10. I mean, that's what happens all the time with him.
30, 10, 11, 2 blocks.
Yeah, and the only thing that makes it so shocking, which is crazy to even say, because Luka he set a precedent that he can do that on any given night, but he's doing that against Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. What?
Yep.
I mean, can anyone else in the NBA do that right now? I don't. The way he gets to his spot is just unbelievable.
He made Pat Beverly look like a child, like a small child.
He made everyone look like a child. I think the Clippers are going to be embarrassed, and because I think they're going to end up losing this series now. And it's funny. We're only through one game of each series, and I feel like my mind has changed so much. And who knows? Maybe these good teams just were sleeping. You know, like the Lakers were. That was the game that I was paying attention to most intently. So I saw that they were lackadaisical, but maybe we'll see the Clippers like come out game 2 and just annihilate the Mavs, and then we'll remember. Oh wait, besides Luka, the Mavs are, I mean, pretty poor. But
interesting.
I like that series.
A couple interesting notes that I took. One, the Clippers shot the 3 pretty bad. If not, both LA teams shot awful, actually. It was like 25%, 26% from 3. And the other one was there was 4 fast break points scored in that game.
Really?
They slowed
like in total or
in
for
total.
The Clips?
In total. There was 4 fast break points scored between the two teams.
It shows that the Mavericks they're setting the pace because that's what they want. I mean, if you have Luka Doncic, you want to play in the half court because of how he can get to a spot, but he also has eyes on the back of his head. So if the Mavericks come out and they control the pace for the rest of the series, I mean, what do the Clippers do? Because sure, Kawhi can get that mid-range bucket almost always, but he's a little passive. We've seen him be passive in the past. And if Paul George isn't shooting well, or if they can't kick it out and Marcus Morris went 0 for 6 from 3, and that can't happen. Marcus Morris is a solid player too, and I don't think that'll happen again. But if the Mavericks can continue to set that pace that they want to play at, I like them in this series.
Well, we have Miami, Milwaukee tonight, and Portland, Denver. What does I want to talk about this series because I don't know. I'm just a fan of Miami right now. I just love the way they're playing. What does Miami have to continue to do tonight to try to get this one done? And if this game if they split in Milwaukee, I think Miami gets another one in Miami, and all of a sudden it's 2-2. And what does Miami have to do tonight to get this done? Yeah,
so it's funny because, I'm saying Milwaukee's going to have no problem, but you're right. If Miami steals home court tonight, then I might completely flip-flop and say Miami's just a better team. But I just think you're right. Milwaukee shoots too many threes, but that's the way they set up their team. They decided a couple years ago, let's surround Giannis by three-point shooters.
Yep.
And I think they need to Bryn Forbes, and I know he's not the most overly gifted basketball player in the NBA, but I think you should put guys out there who are going to make the three, because Giannis is going to attract enough attention to get anyone open. Do you agree with me about that? Let's see. Bryn Forbes played 14 minutes, and he actually went 0 for 3 from 3, but I think a guy like that should be playing more minutes because
problem is then what? Bryn has to guard Goran or Jimmy.
But
he's not going to stay with Duncan or Tyler. He can't keep up with them.
I feel like you're right. He's under athletic, but if you are going to play with this game plan, which the Bucks have decided a long time ago, you need guys who are going to hit the open shots. And like I said, my point seems stupid because Bryn Forbes went over 3 from 3, but keep him in the game, let him shoot some more. They're going to go in. He's got a tremendous jump shot.
Yeah.
They didn't have one person off the bench score a 3. So Milwaukee was terrible from 3 yesterday, and they still got it done. And I think that just shows that Drew Holiday has been such a good pickup for them, and that even when they're not hitting the 3, they can win, whereas last year, when they're not hitting the 3, they're going to lose. But for Miami to win this game, I'd say Jimmy's got to be a little more aggressive. He went 4 for 22 from the field. All right, this series is really confusing me. It's hard to even talk about it after this game, because if Jimmy Butler went 4 for 22 and it goes to overtime...
Bro, this is why I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
I know, but is there a reason? Was Giannis draped all over him? I was watching.
The reason is Giannis is not a play. He can't succeed in the playoffs. A Giannis-led team cannot succeed in the playoffs until he develops a jump shot that makes you have to play him differently. Especially with Bam in the paint. Like, Giannis can go get his. He wasn't even the leading scorer on that team. Chris Middleton was. Chris Middleton had 27. Like Bam had no blocks. The only two players on that had blocks in that game were 2 short white guards. It was DiVincenzo and whatever his name is in the Heat. And it's like Bam needs to just sit in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the paint, and wait for Giannis to come and make him hate his life. And that's what's been happening over and over again. That's why they couldn't get past the Sixers last year. I mean, like, dude, like Giannis has to learn to shoot the ball.
Okay. But do you think that if Milwaukee starts a game making a couple threes, it opens up for Giannis, and then, like, because they're dominant if they're making threes. Because it takes people out of the paint. You have to close out on some of these guys when they start hitting shots. So I feel like I like Budenholzer. I think he's a good coach. I think he knows what he's doing. But if the guys don't make the shots, then it is going to clog up. And then Giannis is going to have a really hard time in the paint because, like you said, in the playoffs, I mean, the defense collapses a lot harder and everything becomes a little more difficult. And Giannis, I mean, he shot a few threes and missed them all. Should he just never shoot threes?
No, because you don't. Yeah. No one's scared of you shooting a 3. If you make 3 threes, we're still not spacing the floor for you, because that's go ahead and make 5. I don't care. They're not until you show us time in for a season or two that you can shoot the clip 37%, 36.5%, 38%. Then we don't care. Yeah.
I agree. If you're the defense and you see Giannis pull up, you are thanking the good Lord, because it's about 80% chance that that's not going in, and that's what you want. Because with one of the best teams in the NBA, if they're trying to score in the paint, then there's a 50% chance it goes in. When Giannis shoots a 3, it's not going in, and it wastes possessions. So I agree. Giannis shouldn't be shooting any threes, and the thing is, it's like he wants to earn that respect out there, so it opens it up for him. But it's not going to go in. So I'm sorry. Like, this offseason, work on it again, and then if all of a sudden you come out and, like you said, shoot 37%, 38%, then all of a sudden you're going to get another MVP if you got a 3-point jump shot. But he doesn't have it right now, and I hate that he pretends that he does have it, and he shoots them anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think that's holding back Milwaukee. But yeah, Jimmy Butler has to be... maybe aggressive is not the word, because he got 22 shots up. He's got to be better. If Jimmy Butler is marginally better at Miami, he has a pretty good chance. Drew Holiday is a brilliant defender, and I know you got on me last week for saying he's one of the best defenders in the league, but I truly believe it.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
Did you? I forget, because you were putting on the mask over your face for half my takes last week.
Yeah, because they were terrible.
But Drew Holiday, correct. The reason Miami's going to have a problem is because Jimmy Butler's not going to feel comfortable with Drew Holiday draped over him for the whole series. So I still like Milwaukee.
Can we talk about how bad Jason Tatum was?
Is it even worth talking about, just knowing that the Celtics are going to get swept? Like, I just don't even know. Jason Tatum is an incredible talent, but I mean, what's going on? He comes off scoring 50 points in a play-in game. and then scores 22. I mean, on 6 for 20.
He had dude. Kemba had a minus 21 differential. Marcus Smart -9. Tatum -8. Fournier -14. Remember when we thought Fournier was the answer to that team? Tristan Thompson -6. I mean, dude, there's not a single positive except for Robert Williams on this entire team.
Yeah.
They just, I mean,
I did think Fournier was the answer. I don't know how I can explain that thought, because even when he's scoring and making his threes, it doesn't make the team better. And partially because Jaylen Brown's out, and that team's it wasn't even that good with Jaylen Brown, and then they lost an all-star. I mean, come on.
Kemba's hurting this team. Kemba is hurting this team.
Yeah, but what do you do?
You get rid of him, and Brad Stevens needs to go, and it's sad. Brad Stevens should go to the Pelicans. Realistically,
who's taking those minutes from Kemba Walker in this particular series?
No, Kemba's gonna play this series. I'm saying you take Kemba Walker out of Boston the moment this season is over. You say sayonara. I don't care if Mario Chalmers, I don't care if Lindsey Hunter comes out of retirement at 51 years old. He will be better for this team. Kemba is bad.
He's been super negative to this team because he will get his shots up every single game, and he's shooting at such a poor percentage that you're blowing it.
He can't play defense. He's not a floor general. There is no benefit to having him out there. And what happens is, what I've noticed after watching a little bit, is that offense gets stagnant. Tatum slows down because Tatum doesn't have Mamba mentality yet. He doesn't want to. It's there and then it's not. It's there and then it's not. It's not consistent. That offense slows down, and all of a sudden Kemba's like, "Oh, my turn. I'm gonna go be Kyrie," and he's not. He thinks he's Kyrie. He's not. He shoots bad shots, and it's to me, Ja Morant is like right on this spectrum of his career will be Kemba or Kyrie, and it's like because they all three of those guys shoot similar shots. And Kyrie's go in, and he's one of the best finishers ever. Kemba shoots this step back, and he also shoots these layups or whatever you want, floaters, whatever you want to call them. And Ja shoots similar shots, and Ja's are going in right now. He's leaning Kyrie. But I think his career trajectory is one of the other because they're all similar size. They all aren't great defenders. So.
Yeah, with all that being said, if Kemba Walker was scoring 30 points a game on 60% for this series, Boston would still get swept. So it just doesn't even matter.
Sure.
Yeah, but he is bad, and he's making them worse. And you're right, he's got to leave town.
It's frustrating to me when I hear Boston fans talk about Tatum and how good that this team is and whatever, and because I hear it, and no, they're not. And no one thinks they're going to beat Brooklyn, but it's the fact that they're still... I would be disappointed if we had this roster in Detroit and this is how things were turning out. I wouldn't be proud of this team.
No,
they're
at all.
Too talented.
You know what Detroit has that Boston doesn't? Finally, for the first time in forever, an identity. Detroit's got a bunch of young guns, and they're starting from the bottom. Detroit has been a 10th through 7th seed for how many years? Where they just don't get a draft pick, but they don't get anything for it. They don't fill the stands. There's no desire. Detroit's got an identity at least now. Boston is their identity is it's bad. It's bad, yeah.
Boston's
so
more talented than Memphis. They're 3 times more talented than Memphis. They're 3 times more talented than Miami. From a personnel perspective. You have
maybe
Tatum,
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, you have Tatum, Brown, and Kemba. I mean, but they finished the year even, like 36 and 36. I don't know.
Borderline embarrassing.
Sorry. Yeah,
it's borderline embarrassing. Yeah. Are there any series we haven't touched on?
We didn't really touch on Philadelphia for too long. We went into them for a second. I didn't say much about them, but that series is...
Yeah,
it's over.
I agree. It's over. Do we want to talk about Grizz Jazz for a little bit longer? Because I do like that series.
Yeah, we can talk about that series. I do want to point out the fact that the Eastern Conference, like, there's 2 series in there where, like, the Nets series and the Sixers series are just kind of over. And there is no series in the Western Conference where I'm like, yeah, this is an easy 4 or 5 games and done. Every single one of these series could go to 7 in the West.
And that would be helpful for LeBron and the Lakers. If they go win in 7 games, then everyone else has that equal disadvantage of tiring themselves out. Let's talk about the Jazz for just a quick second. Let's wrap it up with that. This Jazz team is good. I wouldn't use overrated to describe them because they got the number 1 seed. They won a ton of games, and they lost 1 game to start the playoff series with Donovan Mitchell sitting out. So I don't want to go crazy, but if Ja Morant is playing well, this Memphis team is dangerous, and they got to win with Jaren Jackson playing poorly. Jaren only had 7 points, and that he's still coming back into health. But Jaren Jackson is their second most talented player. I wouldn't say he's their second best player at this moment, especially the way Valanciunas and Dylan Brooks are playing. But he's their second most talented player. So if he shows up, if he starts showing up in this series, I mean, it's hard to bet against Memphis because they stole that game 1. That being said, Donovan Mitchell could come back and they could gentlemen sweep him. They could go 4 games in a row, especially because we saw Rudy Gobert foul out. That's another huge part of that game, and they still came back and almost got the victory. So I do still hold on to the belief that Utah is a better team than Memphis, but Memphis is hungry and they're young, and when they're playing well, they're hard to bet against. What do you think?
It's kind of funny that this is Mike Conley's old team.
I like that. Yeah,
I like that too. My thoughts are, 1, Dylan Brooks is not going to have 31 again in this series.
Not a chance.
That was a huge tip for Memphis to kind of get that game. And then, like you said, Gobert going out. But also, Memphis turned the ball over single digits. I think it was 8 times.
Yeah, and usually they turn it over a lot
9
more.
times. And Utah turned it over 16 times. And so that's a recipe right there. That's 9 extra possessions or 7 extra possessions for Memphis to go and get it done. And they shot the ball 45% from the field, and Utah shot it 25% from 3, which is not like them. So Utah shot the ball poorly, turned it over a lot, and there was a seven rebound difference, and that's kind of something that I didn't expect going into this series. But having Valanciunas kind of be the point man for the front court as far as holding down Rudy, holding down the paint, letting Jaren Jackson kind of roam and do things that he needs to do to be effective is huge. So Memphis,
yeah.
Ja and Memphis have a chance here to become almost legends, being the first.
Yeah.
Have we ever had an 8 upset at 1?
It's hard to say because I felt like it never happened, but then I feel like in the past couple of years it happened because the parity in the NBA is really strong right now. We're seeing a lot of good teams top to bottom, especially in the West, but I can't remember exactly. I was just looking at the box score, though. So Rudy Gobert only got to play 25 minutes, but he was a +9. So just having Rudy Gobert be in the game for those 8 to 10 extra minutes, it wins them that game. So when I look down the line, I do think Utah still gets it done. It's just that Memphis is exciting, and I think this, even just winning that game, is really important for their future. And I like Memphis going forward, especially when Jaren Jackson inevitably becomes a all-star, because he's going to be an all-star. He's only 21 years old.
Jaren had a -19 plus minus differential.
That's what I'm saying. He had a terrible game.
But I see a path here where Spida comes back, isn't healthy, and takes a Jimmy Butler role where he shoots the ball 20 times, makes 4 or 5 of them, and this team struggles again. All of a sudden, I think Utah is still easily the favorite. I don't want to put that past them, but Memphis can make this a series, and they could get it done.
They could shake things up, but I don't see Donovan Mitchell being poor when he comes back. I think we've seen him be pretty baller in the playoffs in the past. And then we've also seen the opposite side of that. So, I like Utah in this series. Is there anything else we want to get to today?
No, I'm sick of people telling me that the NBA is not what it is, because this NBA, this playoffs is elite. This is what the NBA has been pushing for years.
People who say that, and I've been hearing it a lot, they don't watch it. They only say that because they heard one tweet about it, or they disagree with LeBron's political beliefs. Like, people just need to start watching these games if they enjoy basketball, because it is great. The playoff, this is, for me, the way this is setting up, it could be one of the most exciting playoffs that I've ever seen as an NBA fan, especially with the crowds coming back. And like you said, with the Phil Mickelson bit earlier, it's like the timing is so perfect for America, feeling like we're healing, we're finally getting back to normal, and we get to hear this home court advantage actually be a factor, because it is a huge factor. The Suns, I mean, they were energized completely by that audience. The crowd was huge there, and they were loud, they were raucous, they were so grateful to be in the playoffs.
We don't call ourselves Home Court Podcast for no reason, because home court advantage.
Exactly. And home court advantage, it didn't exist this year. So to have that back is so big, and it could be part of the reason we see the Lakers struggle a little bit through these playoffs. I still think they get it done when they need to, but I don't know. Talking stick is raucous. So.
Think about this. If Memphis does beat Utah, and then the Clippers beat Dallas, those two teams, for a very long time in our lifetimes, have been bottom feeders. All of a sudden,
are you talking about Memphis
the
and
Clippers and the Grizzlies?
The Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies had
feeders?
when they had their Marcus Gasol team. But other than that, they've been bad. And
well, they never were going to win. They were never going to win a championship. Yeah, or they were never going to do anything in the playoffs. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. The Memphis Grizzlies have been pretty absent for most of our years of being fans.
And then Phoenix, I mean, this is we're just not used to this.
It's been 11 years.
And the Knicks in the playoffs?
We're seeing a lot of good storylines. I could be more excited. I wish there were 4 games today. What's going on with that? There were 4 games 2 days in a row, and now I only get 2. Either way, I'm going to watch them both. I'm going to be glued to the TV for a few months. So hopefully I actually get to work and do other things. But NBA is gonna take up a lot of my attention. So should we call it? Is that all?
Yeah, I'm just pumped, man. I mean, Phoenix could play Denver or Portland, Utah and the Clippers or Dallas. It's just, there's gonna be guys making moves in this playoffs that we haven't seen do things yet. It's not just Kawhi and LeBron and Steph. It's like this is like a new playoff, a new era.
We're seeing all these young guys get it done.
Like Kyrie and KD, so whatever.
Or go to the East. I still like Philly. But let's call it. I'm a tired boy. I was actually in Phoenix all weekend, and I had a few drinks while I was there. I wish I would have stayed and went to that game, but in the same way, I'm glad I didn't, because the Lakers couldn't get it done. But let's call it. That was a good chat. We're going to have so much to talk about coming up. I almost feel like if we had the time, it'd be great to record 2 a week because of how much is going on in the NBA. Because there are certain storylines that are basically a thing of the past after 5 days. But with that being said, you got a busy schedule. My schedule is busy sometimes. It's very sporadic, so it's really hard for us to make that happen.
This has been another episode of Home Court Podcast.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys.